And then one final thing here I want to talk about is the idea of authenticity. And the reason I want to do that is because one of the things that is mentioned by Cooper here in terms of what it means to be a gentleman is manners. Now, he gives an example of how lax Americans are with their manners, and that he says men don't even take their hats off when they come inside. And that's a rule that some of you probably know. I'm looking around. Any of you guys have a hat on? But why does that part matter is the question I really want to ask. Now, I want to say, if there maybe is any one problem with our culture that has led really to the gender, sexual revolution and everything else, it's this obsession with authenticity. And this obsession with authenticity says that who I really am is something that is inside of me, which is how I feel. And the best thing I can do is whatever I feel. It's a lie. It's a lie for so many reasons. Authenticity is not mentioned in a list of virtues in Scripture. Aristotle didn't encourage us to the virtue of authenticity, because your authentic self and desires may be really bad. So authenticity is something that as Americans we tend to prize above everything else. Be yourself, right? Every kid's TV show says this over and over and over again. Be yourself. Be whoever you want to be. You're not supposed to be yourself. You're supposed to be who God created you to be, whoever that might be, even if you don't like it. Sorry. But what's happened in our culture, Frank Sennett, who's a sociologist, has a book where he talks about the inner and outer man. And essentially he says that we've had this shift in society where in the past there was the outward self and then there was the inward self. And not as this kind of dichotomy is totally two separate selves, but there is a level of appropriateness in terms of who you display yourself as in public that is not appropriate when you are here. So there's a level of appropriateness that's not appropriate when you're with that is appropriate when you're with your family, say your closest friends. It's not appropriate in a public setting, right? There are certain things that I could say to my wife that I shouldn't be saying to you right now. And even in the church, we've done this where we've said like, oh, authenticity is great. So, the pastor can come and confess his deepest, darkest secrets in his heart to the congregation, and then they relate to him because he's being authentic. That's a completely inappropriate thing to do. There is a level of social appropriateness. And so what manners does is it forces us not to just be this inward self when we go and meet people or when we engage in social interactions. It actually gives us a way to say that when we are interacting with people, we have agreed upon rules so that we are a community and we are communally interacting with one another by those same rules. And that actually makes social engagements a heck of a lot easier, because you don't have to go there and say, oh, I have to just guess at what to say or what to do to make myself, look okay. Because what happens when a bunch of self-obsessed individualists come together is that their conversation is nothing more than talking and then waiting for the other person to shut up so they can talk more about themselves. Now, you hear this from Europeans. They say you can spot an American right away, not just because of the accent, but because, within 5 minutes of a conversation, they bragged about themselves and made hints about how much money they have or how big their house is or something like that. That's the reality. That's kind of how we're trained to be in our culture. It's not healthy. So I have referred to manners as a kind of social liturgy. And so I've seen this movement, especially a lot of young people, from this inwardly focused kind of authentic worship to one that is historic, reverent, and outwardly focused and has rituals, is communal. And what I'm saying is that we need to do the same thing in terms of how we interact in culture, because it's the same problem that led us to where we came in worship in evangelicalism that's also affecting how we act in society. And so what I'm saying is we need to regain social liturgy and actually use it. And the great thing about learning about, manners or etiquette in a, in a historic American perspective, because some of it can be a little ridiculous, but is that really it's a way to learn to live outside of yourself, because manners are always about respecting the people around you and not about making yourself feel good.